Hello everybody, today I'm going to show you how to add a high score to your game as well as the name of the person who beat the high score. For this project you will need to be able to access cloud variables, which is only possible once you're a scratcher, not a new scratcher. If you're a new scratcher, don't worry, just keep being active on the community, like for example liking and sharing, remixing and uploading projects, commenting, this kind of stuff, and you'll become a scratcher very soon. Now let me show you how our project will look like once we're done. So as you can see, whenever someone starts this project, the high score and the name of the person who beat the high score are shown. In that case, that is me with a high score of 700 seconds. Of course, this is just a project for the high score, so you don't actually play a game where you have to be 700 seconds fast or something like that. It's just to show you. If someone else, for example, I don't know, if for example someone called Fred was to beat the high score with 600 seconds, then instead of AdderHex07 with 700 seconds, in there you would read Fred with 600 seconds. And so stick around to see how to make this project so that you can add that to any of your games. Okay, so we first have to create some variables. One is called the score, which is just going to be the score that the player will have achieved, or if you have, for example, if your goal is to beat the game as fast as possible, then you call this one timer or whatever. Then make another variable, call it high scorer name, and then make two other variables, which is the high score, and this one should be stored on the server, so make it a cloud variable. And then another cloud variable, which is called high scorer name as number, like that. Then you also want to create a temporary counter, which is going to help us for the loops. So make that variable for all sprites, temporary counter, and that is going to help us whenever we work with loops. Also create a list and call it alphabet, and in that list we're just going to have the whole alphabet plus the numbers from 0 to 9 plus some special characters. Then delete the Scratch Cat costume and add some costumes, which are going to be the letters from A to Z, so the whole alphabet, in small letters, but you can also have them in capital, but I just prefer them small. And then also make sure to name the costume depending on what it looks like. So for example, if you have here A, then that's going to be A. If you have U, that's going to be U, and so on. And for example, we have a white background, and that's not good because our letters are white. So let's make a background that looks a bit grayish, like that, so that we can actually see our letters. And if you don't want to change the color of your background, then just make the letters make them black or something like that. And then we don't only have the letters, we also have here some numbers, and then the special characters exclamation mark, question mark, then an underscore, and this is now very important, so pay attention to that. The color of the underscore should be the same color as the background, so you can't see it. So I'm just going to pick the color of the background like that, and then when we go to the high score, I will paint the background, the underscore with the same color as the background so that you don't see it. So that again is very important, that it has the same color. Then you have a dot and then a double dot. I don't know how that's called. So what we're going to do now is to check if the player beats the game in a shorter time than the high score or in a bigger score than the high score, depending on what objective the game is. So basically if you beat the game. So let's have here when I receive game, when I receive U1, and that's a new message. So make sure that whenever the player who plays your game won the game, so if you beat the final boss or something like that, make sure to broadcast U1, because we're going to use that here for our code. So if you have, for example, a final checkpoint that you have to reach in your platformer game, then make sure that whenever the character reaches that point, broadcast U1. Then hide, and then stop other scripts in the sprite. Sorry, that's here. stuff, other scripts in Sprite, and that's it. Ah, no, sorry. So what we will do now is to check if the if the player beat the game in a better score than the high score. So for example, if you killed more enemies or if you needed less time to beat the game, something like that, then you have to make sure that U1 is broadcasted. So I've already created the message, and make sure that just whenever the objective of your game is reached, you broadcast U1. So for example, if you beat the final boss, then broadcast U1, or if you reach the final checkpoint in a platformer game, broadcast U1, and so on. And then we're going to have if, and now this is dependent on what kind of game you have. So for this example, the goal of the game is to have the score as high as possible, and that's why I have to take a bigger operator, and I'm going to have if the score is greater than the high score. But if you have, for example, a time and you need to have the time as low as possible, then have if the timer is smaller than the high score. Then we will set the high score to the score, so that we have a new high score. And then we will create a new block, make a new block, and call this one get alphabet. And now for the sake of testing, sorry, that has to be in there. For the sake of testing, we will also at the beginning here have set high score to 400, and then set the score to 500, so that whenever we test it, we automatically have a score that is higher than the high score, so we don't always have to change the variables. If we have that at the beginning, then this code is always going to be true, and then we can test it easier. I think more easily. So define get alphabet. At first, we will delete all of alphabet, and then we will set the variable temporary counter to 1. Then we will repeat for the length of, and now this is very important, put in there 9 hashtags, hashtag 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the whole alphabet plus all the special characters. Basically, then everything what you have in there comes after the 9 hashtags. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like that. Then have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then the special characters, so that underscore, dot, double dot, like that. And then you will add letter temporary count. So take letter of, and then put in the, instead of the 1, put in the temporary counter of, and then copy that and put it in there to alphabet. And then at the end, change temporary counter to 1. I will explain that in a second. So what this is doing is that at the beginning, the temporary counter is 1, and then it will repeat, I don't know how many characters there are in there. I think there are, let me see, how many costumes do we have? 40, and then we have the 9 hashtags at the beginning, so it will repeat 49 times. It's going to add the first symbol of all of that to alphabet, so that's going to be the first hashtag. And then it's going to change temporary counter by 1. And the next time the loop goes around, it's going to add the next symbol to the alphabet, so that's the second hashtag. And it's going to go like that, and then the 10th time this loop happens, it's going to add A to the alphabet, and so on. Now we can test that by showing the alphabet list and clicking on that. And as you see here, we have hashtag, 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 and so on. We have the 9 hashtags. Then we have the whole alphabet. Then we have 0 to 9. Then we have all of those symbols. And actually, that's the purpose of this code, is just to create a list with every single symbol or character that we have is going to have a specific number. Now, at the end of this code, create another new block and call this one set high scorer name. And remember, this code only happens if someone beats the high score. If someone doesn't beat the high score, then all of that doesn't happen. And put that as the end of all of that of this code. So now we have to define this new block. So at first we will set we will reset the high score name as number to nothing. So make sure to click delete in here and don't have like space or 0. Really have nothing. Then we will set the temporary counter to 1 because we're going to use loops again here. So that's where we need that variable. And then we will repeat for the length of username. So for me, for example, if I'm called AdriHack07, my username is 10 characters long, so that loop is going to happen 10 times. Length of username. Take an if statement, if, and then have a contains block. I will explain it in a second, so don't worry if it's a bit complicated. I will get back to that. And then take letter of and put it behind there. And now copy all of that, put it in there, but this time delete the hashtags so that you only really have all our costumes and not the hashtags at the beginning. Then put, instead of the 1, temporary counter, and instead of the apple, make sure to have, oops, where did I put that? Oh, wait, I'll just make it back. Okay, now put the temporary counter in there, and then instead of apple, make sure to have username in there. Then we will set the high scorer name as a number, 2, and then take a join block, join high scorer name as a number again, with, then take item number of, and then we have letter of, and then have temporary counter in there, and then have username, sorry, instead of apple again. Then change temporary counter by 1. And now I will explain you what this is going to do. So basically it will look, at first the temporary counter is 1, and then it will look if the first symbol of your username is in there, and that's obviously going to be the case because that's literally every single key on your keyboard. So for me, for example, the first letter in my username is the A, and then it's going to look if all of that contains an A, and that is the case because in here we have an A. Now we're going to set the high score name as a number, and then we're going to look at this code. So that here is going to be 1. For example, if I set temporary counter to 1, which it is at the beginning, and now I look at that, this is going to be A. And now we're going to look what in the alphabet, on which position is the A, and it's on position number 10. So now it's going to join the old high score name as number, which is nothing, with 10, and that should be, it should give us 10. Since it's joining 0 with nothing with 10, that's giving us 10. Let's look at that. And then we also show that. As you see, it's already 0 and 10, but at the beginning we will set it to nothing again, like this, and we click on that, and it's 10. So that's perfectly fine. And then it's just going to repeat for the next letter in the username. So this time it's going to be the D. So if we test that, we just set the temporary counter to 2 this time, and then we have this code in there again, and we check that. And as you see, it just added 13 to our old variable. And if you look there, 13 is the D. So this code is working perfectly fine. If you didn't understand something, please ask me in the comments because it's very important to me that you understand what you're doing and not just copy it. So I would be very glad if I could help. And then at the end of this code, make sure to set high scorer name, but this time the local variable, this one, to nothing, and then create a new block and call it high scorer name and add it at the end of this code. Now the code that we're going to do right now, or that we're going to do, is basically that we're going to that whenever we land on the home screen or wherever you want to display your high score, we're going to reconvert that, because that's going to be, if I click all of that, you're going to reconvert this big of number set here into letters, because if you would be displaying that on the home screen, no one would understand what that means. Although actually, if you look, 10 is A, 13 is D, 27 is R, and so on. The last letter in my name is the 7, so now let's look what's on the 43rd position, and that's 7. So that is working, this code is working. Now, let's continue with the coding. Have in there repeat, and then take length of, take a division sign, and inside the left half you will put length of, and in the right part you will divide it by 2. And then have here the length of high score name as a number. So what this is going to do is it's going to repeat basically how long this is divided by 2. And since you remember, we always have a pair of numbers for one letter, and for one letter in the real username, it's going to repeat actually the length of the username of whoever beat the high score. So if I were to beat the high score, then it will repeat 10 times. If Fred beat the high score, it will repeat 4 times. And then have, now inside this loop in here, set high scorer name to, and then take a join. This code is going to be quite long, so pay attention here. Join high scorer name, again not as a cloud variable but the local one, with item of alphabet, and then put in there a join, then put in there letter of. I'll explain that again in a second. I always first do the code and then I explain it. That's why you might not understand what this is doing right now. Then have here, so we have letter of, and then have also again letter of in the back half. Then have in here a plus operator inside the third one, and then have in here +1. Now let me show you what you put inside those 4 places. In the first one, put temporary counter. Inside this one, you put high scorer name as number. Inside this one, you put temporary counter. And inside this one, you put high scorer name as a number again. So I think instead of explaining it, I will show you what this is doing so that it's going to be easier for you to understand. So let's first actually set temporary counter to 1. I forgot that. Set temporary counter to 1 at the beginning of this code. And now let's look what this is going to do if we just have that and that. And now let's show also the high scorer name. Let's click on temporary counter to 1. And now we click on that. And you see here, we just converted. All of that code is actually just to convert 10 to A. It's a bit, well, you probably thought that this is going to do something cooler than that, but actually it isn't. Now let me explain what this is doing. I'll zoom in there. So let's actually get the code. Let's take it apart. So we have this code in here. And that is join this with this. So these two things here are joined. And if you look closely, it's just letter temporary counter of high score name as a number. And temporary counter is 1. So it's going to look what is the first letter inside this here. And that is 1. And then it's going to look this code here. Temporary counter +1, which is 2. of high score name as number. So now it's going to look what is the second thing of this here. That's 0. And then it's just going to join 1 and 0. And then since we have 1 and 0, which is 10, inside this block here, it's going to look what is the item 10 of alphabet. Sorry, I need to set that to 10. That is A. So actually this code is just looking, it's converting these two things here into a letter again. And then we have that in here. And that is the same code as here. As you can see, I'll delete this block here. And now if we look, what is going to happen? Something dumb is going to happen. Why? Because I didn't change I didn't change the temporary counter by 2. So let's change temporary counter by 2 every time. If you're wondering why by 2 and not by 1, since we've done this every single time before, this time we're always looking at 2 numbers at the same time, so we also have to change the temporary counter by 2. So let's look at that. It's set AdderHack07 at the end, so I need at first to, if you really want to see that, how it's working, set it to nothing, and then make this code again, and now this is working fine. Okay, if you have any questions, again, remember to ask me in the comments, and I would like to help you. So let's just look at what we have done up to now. So whenever someone beats the high score, their username is going, and their score is going to be stored in variables. So basically, this code here, so this code is setting the high score, the number, just the high score, it's doing that. Then this code here is preparing everything for this code here. And this code here is transforming their username into a number. So basically now, these 3 parts here are putting everything that we need into the cloud. And then this code here is actually doing something different. This one is already taking the data that is in the cloud and it's getting on the computer again. Because, for example, if Fred beats the high score, I want to know that too. So if Fred beats the high score, all of his data is going to be stored on the cloud, and whenever I am looking at who has the high score, it's going to reconvert that data into a name, and then I can see that Fred is currently number 1 playing my game. Now let's look, for example, just to give you this example of Fred, we're going to replace all of the username code with Fred. So we have length of Fred, then we have temporary counter of Fred, and then we have again temporary counter of Fred. And now I've already tested this before. So let's look. As you see, this, all of that is actually Fred. So let's just look that. So that's me again. And if we take that out and it's Fred, then, and Fred beats the high score. So let's say my high score was 400, but his score is 500, so he's better than me at the game. Then the new high score name is Fred, and then his high score, let's look at the high score, is 500, and he's just on the leaderboard. Now if you want, you can do that. Let's say the username of somebody else could be, let's say Griff Patch plays my game. No, that I don't want to be copyrighted. So let's say, I don't know. Let's look if Joe, how do you write that? Like that, I think. Joe beats Fred with a high score of 600 this time. So Joe is even better than Fred. So let's look what happens then. As you see, the high score name now is Joe, and yeah. But since we don't want to have some specific names as the high score, but the username of whoever actually won, let's put back the username instead of the names. Alright, now let's, now you have to decide, whenever you want to show your who beat the high score. So for me, it's when we receive home screen. So whenever I land on the home screen, or if I lose the game and I'm brought to the home screen, or if I win and I'm brought to the home screen, then broadcast home screen. And you might have, for example, a button where you click on it, and then it tells you who is the high scorer, who's the high scorer. So make sure that whenever someone clicks on this button, you broadcast just any message, but something different than you won. Because this is not the same thing as you won. This is to show, even if you're not the one who beat the high score, this is to show who has the high score and how high it is. So let's have go to, and then put in there, I'm going to zoom again, negative 222 and 125, then hide, then set temporary counter to 1. Actually, let's keep that code on the side for now. And let's just make a new block again and call this one text. And then have an input and call this one text, actually call the block text1. Oops, text1, and the input should be text1, 2. And I'll put that in here. Let's look, that's here. Okay. And inside there, inside this text1, you want to write hi. With small letters, that's also very important. With small letters, you write hi, score, and then double point. And then we define this text1, so we set temporary counter to 1. Then we repeat for the length of, and then take this input here, so just drag it out of there and put it inside this length of. Then take a switch costume 2, and then take letter of, letter temporary counter, so take the variable temporary counter of text, and then create clone of myself, then change x by 15, and then change temporary counter by 1. Here. Then also take when I start as a clone, show. So what this code should be doing is simply writing this text here on the screen, but you shouldn't be able to see the underscore since that is the same color as the the home screen. So let's click on that. And as you see here, we write high score, and that's really what we wanted, so that is perfect. Now at the end of this text1 definition, I guess, take a go to, and then have negative 222 and 100. No, let's take 80 from the x position, for the y position, sorry, and then create another new block and call this one text2 with the input of text2. Click on OK and have this text2 at the end of text1, and write inside there join, then take another join and put it inside the first one, and then you want to have high score and name, the local variable, and that is going to be, for example, Joe, or if we look again at me currently, if I beat the high score, that is going to be AdriHack07. So we're going to join whoever beat the high score, so let's say AdriHack07 with a double point, and then, take another join, put it inside the last one, then take the score, and then take like score, or I don't know, seconds if that's your if that's how you measure the high score. I'm just going to do kills. And now we need to define text2, so that is just going to be a duplication of text1, but with the small difference that we put that last code again away, and we also, instead of text1 in here, we put text2. Oops, sorry, text2. Yeah, and at the end, we create a new block, call this one text free, and now I think you can already guess it. Input text free. Then for this, you should also go, sorry, it should say beat the high score or something motivating like that. Let's try it. Beat the high score with an exclamation mark. Um, put that in there. Duplicate that, then change text to by text free and put it there. Also make sure to change that Y position, for example, to 60 or something like that. And now let's look if how that is going. I mean, how that works. So let's click on this stop button so that all of the clones are erased, and then click on that again. And as you see here, oops, this isn't working. Let me just look where the problem is. Okay, so I quickly found the problem. Actually, we had here inside the defined text tree, we had text tree. So basically, it would always, whenever this is finished, it will go again and go in and forever loop. So let's take that out, and now it should be working. Home screen. That's pretty cool, but we still have here a problem because it says 600 ILS, and I know why that is why that happens. It's because we have written kills with a capital K, but we don't have a capital K costume, so it can't get this costume. So let's write kills small. Click on that again. And that is working better now, but we still have these two are close together. So let me see what I can do here. So remember, our underscore is helping us whenever we need a space. So let's write underscore kills, and now it should be working. Perfect. Of course, you can change, for example, the third message if you don't want to have beat the high score, but for example, good, remember to write it with small letters, good luck, something like that. And then we delete all of those clones and we do it again. It's on your good luck. So basically you can just have any message that you want in there. Another important thing is, for example, when you receive home screen, that you delete this clone, because otherwise you might have too many clones on top of each other, like we just had when we had this loop. And also, like for example, if you don't have a home screen, then just take whenever you leaderboard or whenever just where you want to show the message, these messages. If you want to show them, for example, inside the game, then take whenever the game starts, do this. So it's really up to you. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something. If you came this far of watching, I'm very thankful. Please consider liking this video as it would be suggested to more people. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Anyways, see you in the next video.